Call the meeting to order. This is the Village of Riverside Board of Trustee regular meeting for Thursday, September 18th, 2014. The time is 7 p.m. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
President Sells.
Here.
Trustee Sussman.
Here.
Trustee Hamilton.
Here.
Trustee Pollock.
Here.
Trustee Ballerine.
Here.
Trustee Collins.
Here.
Trustee Foley. Here. Also present, Village Manager Francis and Village Clerk Haley.
Thank you very much. If you please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Welcome to all that are here and to everyone who's watching at home. If you're here and would like to make a statement to the board, you're welcome to do so at any time. You can do it during public comment, or if you want to wait to a specific line item in the agenda, you're welcome to speak at that point also. I just ask that you be recognized by the president and that you make your comments from the podium so that the folks at home can see and hear what you have to say. So first up this evening is presentations and public comment. Would anyone like to address the board? Mr. Gallegos.
Alex Gallegos, 3234 South Harlem. Good evening, President Mateo, trustees, those in attendance, and to those watching at home. Sir, I come before you and the Village Board on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure as Secretary of Commerce to inform the public of upcoming events. One event will be coming up from the Chamber, and that is the annual car show. That'll be on Sunday, September 28th, from 9 to 5. Expect about 300 cars from there. It looks like it's going to be a great weekend. We have the makeup concert from Riv India, the jazz concert from the Economic Development Commission at 6:30 on Friday the 26th. So it looks like a lot of things are great happening to wind up summer and kick off the new season. I want to thank everyone on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and the Lions Club who came out on the 10th to honor Patty McGlure as Person of the Year. We had about 146 attendees on that evening. It was a great night. Everyone had a great time. There's some great photos on Facebook, so please check those out. President Sells, I want to congratulate you, sir, on your perfect news, and I want to wish both you and Jill a lifetime of happiness together.
Thank you very much.
And Jessica, I want to also welcome you into your new role. And on behalf of the Chamber, we look very forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And sir, that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Appreciate that. He was kidding about the Mr. Mateo part, right? Yeah. Anyone else like to address the board at this time? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the reports of village officers. First up is the village president's report, and number one on the list is a motion to appoint Philip Kopp to the Landscape Advisory Commission to fill a vacancy with a term to expire June 1, 2015. So I'd ask for a motion and a second for the appointment.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hamilton.
Second.
Second by Ms. Collins. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Ballerine.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Motion carries, and we're delighted, Mr. Kopp, that you're going to be serving on the LAC. You bring a host of experience and energy, and we're looking forward to it. And would you like to be sworn in this evening? Sure. Ms. Clerk.
I just need you to raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Philip Kopp, do solemnly swear
I, Philip Kopp, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and I will faithfully perform the duties
of the Office of Landscape Advisory Commissioner
of the Office of Landscape Advisory Commissioner
for the Village of Riverside, Illinois,
for the Village of Riverside, Illinois,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I need your signature.
Thank you again. So next up is an inaugural event. We have the first agenda item to be presented by our new village manager, Jessica Francis. I'm delighted to have you sitting up here with us.
Thank you,
Welcome.
sir.
And, I hope you enjoy your new duties as we move forward.
Thank you.
So next up is a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing issuance of a Class E restaurant liquor license to 34 East Lounge LLC. Ms. Francis.
On August 19th of 2014, the village had received the request for a business and Class E liquor license application from Natalie Oblonsny on behalf of 34 East Lounge LLC. She is actually here this evening and can address any questions that the board may have. The former occupant of this commercial space listed in the B2 Central Business District held a Class E liquor license as well. That Class E liquor license ceased to exist upon the business closing. She has also submitted fingerprints to Riverside Police Department, and they have conducted a background check, and all of that has received satisfactory results. The village also advertised a public notice, which appeared in the Landmark on August 27th of 2014. A motion to approve an ordinance increasing the number of Class E liquor licenses by 1 and issuing a Class E liquor license to 34 East Lounge LLC is being recommended.
So I would ask for a motion in a second.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Foley, second by Mr. Ballerine. Any comments or questions?
I just have a question, just mode of operation. So there was a Class E license. It ceased to exist, so the number of Class E licenses goes down when a business closes. So then we have to, it's not like it remains open and there's one available, right? Okay, I just wanted to understand that, because it works different.
No, that was my question, too.
Yeah, okay.
Did you want to take an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your place?
Hi, I'm Natalie Oblonsny. Excuse me, very excited to have this opportunity here. It's my first venture into owning a restaurant bar, and I'm very excited. The space is wonderful. Your town is wonderful. So I'm just hoping for, a good experience here and to go into a new venture.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our town.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman. Aye. Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollak.
Aye.
Trustee Ballerine.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have a question. When do you think you'll open?
I'm shooting for the first, which may be a little bit
Oh, wow.
ambitious, but
So this fall still?
yes.
Great.
I do have just one on a personal and a village note that I just discovered this past week, and we will do something a little more fitting for this honor coming forward. But on September 16th, Chief Weitzel celebrated his 30th year anniversary with the village. So he must have lied about his age, and you started when you were like, what, 18? But we greatly appreciate your service over all these years, and you're a treasure to the village, and we're very proud to have you. That is all I have. On to the village manager.
And we have a few items. I just wanted to note that the village's refuse contract will be extended through January 30th of 2015. Staff is currently working on finalizing a request for proposal, and we're working in coordination with WCMC, which is a conference that the village is a part of. The fire department is hosting an open house on Sunday from noon to 4. Please note that Riverside Road will be closed during this event. Also, our police department is working closely with the school staff and Brookfield Police Department to ensure a safe homecoming for Riverside Brookfield High School students. This includes an increased police presence during the weekend. and also during overnight hours. Additionally, IDOT has notified Riverside Police Department that construction at First Avenue and Forest Avenue and Ridgewood Road will resume on Monday. Traffic signals will be moved on Tuesday and lane closures are expected. Also, the Groveland and Park water main project is moving along. The installation of new water mains on Park Avenue and Groveland were completed yesterday. The new water main will be connected to the existing water main on Forest Avenue tomorrow. The contractor will then pressure test and chlorinate the new main and begin connecting the new water services on Groveland once test results have all passed. This will be followed by the restoration of street and parkways. The lining of the water mains under the Des Plaines River is slated to begin September 29th. And all construction is scheduled to be completed by October 31st. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions about any of that? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like removed for discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hamilton. Second.
Motion by.
Motion by Ms. Sussman. Second by Ms. Hamilton, and third by Mr. Foley. So please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton. Aye. Trustee Pollak.
Aye.
Trustee Ballerine.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, reports of departments, commissions, and trustee liaisons. Do any trustees have reports this evening? Ms. Collins?
I am the liaison for the Economic Development Commission, and since this is the first liaison report, I just wanted to report as to what EDC has been doing and what they're looking towards doing in the future. Over the past year, they created an EDC website, which is riversideedc.org. They also created an EDC Facebook page, which is available. They had a Shop Local campaign where they partnered with the Chamber on their I Found It in Riverside campaign. And they had a May Brokers Bash, which was very successful, where they had brokers come into town to look at the available commercial spaces. They also began work on a visitor center, which is on the north platform of the train station, that has some of the things installed but is not yet completed, and they're looking to have that completed this next year, and I believe there is going to be a request for money in the budget for that, so we'll be looking at that. They are also initiating a fall bike event, which will take place on Saturday, October 4th, the Riverside Ride. Some of the things that they would like to look at, the discussions that they've had, they would like to look at in the future, is how to promote tourism in Riverside. They're working to find events that would attract people to come to Riverside. They met with the Berwyn Development Corporation to hear about the development efforts in Berwyn. Berwyn has had great success with some work that they've been doing. They created a night market, or they've discussed creating a night market that would fall between the farmer market season and the winter market, that would be held in the evening hours so that commuters could check that out. They're working on seeing if that is something that would be feasible to do. And they are marketing Riverside in different types of campaigns that they're looking at. They are requesting that we look into whether or not we want to have a marketing plan that would have a marketing campaign for us to look into what could be done to market Riverside to outside either people that would move into the community or businesses to move into the community. And they want to get an idea from the board as to whether that would be something that would be supported or not. And then the Riverside, the Visitor Center, again, they were going to be looking for some support from the board on that. So that's some of the things that they're working on.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ballerin?
A couple of things, but I happen to be fortunate enough to have Ron with us tonight. Ron, can you give us a brief update on how Touch a Truck went today and the District 96 co-op for the after-school program?
Touch a Truck was successful in its second year. Big thank you to all of the village departments who not only provided vehicles for it, but staff as well. It's a good kind of outreach opportunity for all the departments, kind of let them know, what we do, how we do it, and other than that, it's just fun for the kids to climb on the trucks, and adults too. So that went great. Thanks again to village departments, and we're happy to announce that we did partner with Hauser Junior High to offer an after-school program to compensate for the early dismissals on Monday. So at this time, we'll be able to offer activities homework help and supervised activities for parents who need that coverage and for kids who want extra help with their homework.
Now, do they have to sign up for this with the rec department?
They will. We're going to start all of our, we just actually got it confirmed, so starting tomorrow we will be putting out the word on our Facebook page. We'll be doing an e-flash, but they would register through the recreation department, and there's parent manuals they'll need to fill out and registration forms. But we are going to start, it'll start September 29th, so a week from this coming Monday.
That's great. A couple other things I don't know if anyone noticed, but a car drove through the front doors of the First America Bank, and two of the recreation employees happened to be on the scene, Annie Hanrahan and Colleen Wagner. Colleen ran into the building and assisted the driver, and Annie ran to the police department. So we're very proud of their actions in that tight situation, so we appreciate that. And with the District 96 thing, I'd like to thank the principal, Steve Jakura, for his working with Ron and getting this together. I'd also like to thank Dr. Karen Judy, Trustee Foley's wife. This kind of came out of a letter that she had written to the rec director about what she felt the school needed, and Ron took it and his department took it and ran with it and worked with the schools and got it to go through. So I encourage residents. They have programming ideas, if they have, park ideas, whatever they, if they have any kind of ideas, to forward that to Director Malchiotti, and, we try to, they try to, come up with as much things as they can, but they can't think of everything. So, if it's something that fits into the schedule, we would love to hear from you. So please feel free to contact them. Thanks, Ron.
And Ron, while you're up there, just to reiterate, I hope everybody heard it. Can you just talk a little bit about the concert and the bike event?
Yes. So the concert has been rescheduled to Friday, September 26th. It will remain the same event, hopefully with better weather this time. But we are looking forward to it. It's the first in a series of events. And again, this was one of those events that, we had talked about doing. But it was definitely through support of residents and President Sells that we added this concert, and we think it's going to be great, another opportunity for the community to come together and have fun and certainly showcase Guthrie Park and what we can offer. So that's rescheduled. And then the Riverside Ride is an event that we worked with EDC on. That is going to be from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. On October 4th, and that will start the beginning and end at the Green Lot, so right in the middle of town, right on Burlington, and it'll be an escorted loop through town, so you're going to be able to ride the streets of Riverside all together in a group, and then we'll convene back at the Green Lot, and we'll have activities there. We're going to have bike safety tips. We're going to have a vendor there checking bicycles and helmets. We're going to have fun activities for the kids. We're also going to have a few vendors out there. Fleur has agreed to provide refreshments, and Dan's Bike Shop will also be there for the bike safety. So we're going to have fun for the whole family. It'll start with a bike ride. It'll culminate with a lot of activities and some safety, all promoting bikes and the businesses of Riverside.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Looking forward to both of those things. Anyone else?
Mr. Sells, I just wanted to announce, comment on the Planning and Zoning Commission upcoming public hearing. On Wednesday, September 24th at 7 p.m., the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing to consider text amendments to the sign ordinance related to the downtown business district, the B2 district. They've been working on this for at least 6 months now. There's been a lot of effort put into this, and this is the opportunity for the business community and other interested parties to be on record to comment on it, on the revisions to the sign ordinance. The purpose of the revisions is to implement the CMAP plan recommendations, the specific recommendations made in the CMAP plan for signage in downtown Riverside. If anyone has any questions, they can contact Community Development Director Sonia App during business hours. Thank you.
Someone else? Okay, moving on to ordinances and resolution. First up tonight is an ordinance amending Section 10.10.4 and related sections of the Village of Riverside zoning ordinance relative to additions and enlargements to non-conforming buildings and structures. Director Abt.
Alrighty. Staff has held, well, the staff didn't hold, but staff put together a text amendment that the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on that would allow for conforming additions to non-conforming houses. Currently, as the ordinance stands, if you wanted to do an addition to your house and your house is considered non-conforming, meaning it doesn't meet the side yard setback or it doesn't meet the rear yard setback, you're not allowed to expand the house unless you would just want to go straight up. So we did have a potential resident that was looking at a house and the house was non-conforming, and she brought it to my attention that she would have to go through a variance in order to do an addition to her house that would meet all of the setbacks. So we did prepare this text amendment that would address that issue. So basically what this does is amend the section regarding non-conforming structures, and so long as the addition meets all of the bulk requirements, including the setbacks, does not make any more new non-conformities, i.e. Lot coverage or impervious surface, that the addition would be allowed without having to go through the variation process. So now if somebody wanted to expand the non-conformity, they would still have to come through the variation process, but at least for additions that meet all the setbacks, they would not have to jump through that extra hoop in order to be able to do that addition.
So before we have discussion, could I have a motion to approve an ordinance that would amend the text of the Village of Riverside zoning ordinance, sections 10.10.4 and 10.10.6 regarding additions to non-conforming residences?
So moved.
You win this time. Motion by Ms. Sussman, second by Mr. Pollock. Discussion or questions? Is everyone clear on this? Okay, please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Valerie.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
No.
Motion carries. Next up is a resolution authorizing the village manager to create a purchase order in the amount of $109,210 for the purchase of rock salt from the Morton Salt Company for the 2014-2015 snow and ice control season. Ouch. Director Bailey.
Good evening, everybody. This is the annual purchase of rock salt for the upcoming snow and ice control season. The Village of Riverside, like I think the majority of municipalities in the state of Illinois, purchases rock salt through the Central Management Services Agency of the state of Illinois. They combine all of the quantities that these different municipalities desire for the upcoming snow and ice control season and competitively bid that as one large quantity. Over the last 4 years, the average rock salt price experienced by the Village of Riverside is about $54 a ton. This particular year, the staff submitted, and this is for the upcoming snow and ice control season, starting not too many months out, later the better, but 1,000 tons of rock salt is what we had requested from this bid process. And we've received notification that the vendor for Riverside, as it historically has been, is the Morton Salt Company. The price will be at $109.21 per ton. And of that amount, we're obligated to purchase at least 80% and can purchase up to 120% more than what we've ordered. So that could be up to 1,200 tons. It's probably the understatement of the evening that was a dramatic price increase for salt. I'd been hearing rumors that prices were going to be $80 to $120 a ton this year. I didn't want to believe them. And then, of course, this notification came from the state. I can give you a little bit of background, I think, what drove these prices this year. I think it's worth noting at first that salt is a commodity, as we all know, and the largest user of salt is the chemical industry. So there's competition for salt products just from that standpoint. The fastest growing market is in Asia. So, you know, that sets up a really dynamic price environment. And what is most directly affecting this price, I think, is the severe winter last year The whole supply line was depleted. And the other thing that happened, including Riverside, we dramatically increased the amount of salt that we ordered because we were depleted, and that's the demand side, of course, and that pushes the price up. Once the demand is up, the supply is down. A few other things that I think were probably factors is beginning last year, the IEPA began enforcing salt brine discharge from these depots that are along the rivers. Most of the salt that comes to northern Illinois comes from Louisiana salt mines and comes up the river, probably the Illinois River, and there's these depots along the river where the salt is offloaded from the barge, and there's massive piles of it. But apparently these companies have not controlled the salt brine, mixes with water and runs into the river. And I've heard that those companies have been subjected to significant fines for that salt brine discharge. Even one of those depots closed. And that by itself will take a lot of salt supply off the market. It's also notable, I think, that this Central Management Service contract over the years has had a concept, some of you are probably familiar with it, maybe more so than I, called force majeure. And that, I believe that means that if a supplier is providing a product and something happens to prevent that product from being supplied, the supplier is not held accountable, in so many words. The state of Michigan, or state of Illinois, removed that force majeure requirement from the contract, meaning that, say, like last year, the Mississippi River froze over, the barges couldn't get up, and the suppliers could say, we can't supply the salt because of these unforeseen circumstances. Anyway, that force majeure requirement is removed. Now these suppliers, these vendors like Morton Salt Company, have to supply salt within 7 days of it being ordered. There's no excuses. And you can imagine the risk associated with that. And I believe a number of these vendors were subject to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fines last year. So there's a number of factors, the market, the supply chain that was severely depleted, obviously, from the last winter, everybody ramping up their orders to make up for this, their low supply, and then some of these other factors that affect the marketplace. But that's the situation we're in. We will, like I say, we have to purchase at least 80%. Two things that I think will have some positive impact for us. We will be using a product called Beet Heat, which is liquid material that makes rock salt much more effective. The other thing I think is even more valuable to us is I am sending my crew leader to a several-day training course on snow and ice control later in October. It doesn't seem to me that the Public Works staff has had a lot of good training on snow and ice control. I just know they haven't. I attended the same course a year or so ago. And we can improve our efficiency and proficiency with snow and ice control. And we must. Just going back to this issue where it's a little bit speculative, but where these big salt depots are being regulated by IEPA for the salt brine discharge, that salt is dissolving going into the probably Illinois River, the Mississippi River, so on and so forth. We know where our salt goes. Actually, the same place. So I think won't be that many more years, IEPA will be coming down more to the local level and being very interested in our salt use and how we're using it, how judiciously we're using it. And it's really about protecting the environment.
So I'd ask for a motion to authorize the village manager to create a purchase order in the amount of $109,210 for the purchase of rock salt from the Morton Salt Company for the 2014-2015 snow and ice control season.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hamilton.
Second.
Second by Ms. Collins. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Do you know, Ed, if other communities are in fact signing this contract, the joint purchasing agreement?
When part of the requirements, I guess, when you submit your order, you're agreeing that you will purchase.
Oh, okay, so they will regardless of the price?
Yes. One of the things about that too is the salt market likes the municipal market because when, again, we're signing this agreement, we're submitting and we're saying we will buy 80%, as opposed to say the private market, you know, they don't necessarily have to buy what they order. It's also notable that in this process, 191 municipalities in the state of Illinois did not receive any bid at all. So the village's price $109 a ton, which might be better than not having a price at all. So those communities then are out on the open market, obviously looking for a salt supply. The later in the year that you're pursuing salt, the higher the price. The village of Carpentersville, I understand just earlier this month, had bid out 2,500 tons of salt, 0 bids on it. So it's a tough market. You know, on the one hand, I hate to see this $109 a ton price, but on the other hand, could be worse.
So how bad is the winter going to be, Ed?
His beard is getting thicker.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Enough said. I'll probably shave this up. Well, I can comment on that. I did attend a session presented by a private sector company actually earlier this week. They had 3 meteorologists there, and they each gave a spiel. A couple of them were on television, have been on television, but they're predicting, they seemed all, this is for what it's worth because we could all have our own forecast, but something in a range of 36 to 39 inches of snow this upcoming year. That's about average. We had 80 some last year. But it all depends because they start mentioning all these different factors, and it's like, well, okay, I'll go with your prediction. I hope that's true, but you know, no one knows.
As they say, it's complicated. I do have a question, though. With the utilization of the beet juice, you mentioned it increases the effectiveness of the salt. Does it also decrease the amount of salt we have to use?
Yeah, the concept with these materials, organics we can call them, they have a couple different effects. One is that they're pre-wetted, and it prevents what they call bounce. You know, when these salt trucks go down the road, if you're behind them, you see the salt flying everywhere. A significant portion ends up in the parkways. It helps prevent bounce, so there's more that's concentrated on the roadway. The other key thing is melting ice requires heat, the liquid, and then the chemical melting agent. And the beet juice, we're using planning to use a super beet juice that this company insists is much better than the other material, just plain old beet juice that we tried before. I wasn't very satisfied with it. But those are the keys to melting ice. Like I just mentioned to someone in my department a couple of days ago, putting dry rock salt on snow and ice is so 1940s. And, you know, we're not necessarily the leading edge or anything like that, but for a variety of reasons, cost, the environment, everybody's going to have to go there, and if you're not going there, IPA, I think, is going to be nipping at your heels relatively soon to help assure that you're being careful with whatever salt you're using. And, you know, there's other materials like just liquids that we can hopefully use that we would put out pre-event. One of the key things is to prevent snow and ice from bonding to the pavement surface. It's tough stuff when that snow and ice bonds to the surface, because you really can't do much about it.
Do we have the equipment that we need for this, or is this something that needs to be purchased?
For where I think we are right now, what we're planning to do is treat our salt stockpile with this material, and that's an acceptable method. It's the least expensive. Obviously, there's no capital involved in it. Generally speaking, what I've heard from other communities, and I've attended a number of educational sessions on this matter, departments of public works tend to rig stuff up to, like I was mentioning, applying this liquid pre-event to the streets. That's what I want to do. I want to prove it, and as we go along, probably, invest as necessary. You can go all the way into having big storage tanks and manufacturing your own brine. I don't know that we'd ever get to that point, but for how we're starting, we're not really anticipating any capital investment. The next step might be wetting the salt as it is leaving the back of the truck that you typically, and you'll see those on other, like IDOT probably has these saddle tanks. That's that liquid being stored, and they're spraying it onto the salt as it's going out. That's maybe about $5,000 per truck. Might depend upon the size of tanks you put on, but it's not super expensive to even go that far.
Thank you.
Anything else? So before we go, I just want to say I appreciate how proactive and progressive an approach you're taking to this, because you're quite right that it won't be long before the EPA comes knocking. Yeah. So I'm glad that we're getting out ahead of this, and you're to be commended, you and your staff.
Thank you.
So please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollak.
Aye.
Trustee Valerie.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, a resolution authorizing the village manager to purchase a 2015 F-350 Ford pickup truck with plow package in the amount of $47,854 from Curry Motors of Frankfort, Illinois. Mr. Bailey.
This item is in the 2014 capital budget. It's a proposed replacement of a 2004 GMC gas engine four-wheel drive pickup. The budget amount was $27,000. To replace this vehicle, which we call R7, it's like I say, a four-wheel drive GMC pickup, we're proposing to purchase a 2015 F-350 four-wheel drive diesel engine truck with a Boss V-blade plow package. In the amount of $47,854. This Ford F-350 is the smallest truck currently available through the state purchasing cooperative that provides the towing capacity required by the Department of Operations. The real driver there is our Jetta Rodder. It's 11,800 pound tongue weight. The base price of the vehicle is $20,809, and then with the options selected, that raises the price to $36,735. And then we're proposing this Boss plow package at a cost of $11,119, and that includes, the Boss plow is hinged in the middle. It can be used as a V-plow, an inverted V-plow. So it's really quite versatile and really effective at handling and managing snow. And then it comes with all the attachments, the warning lights, and has a cab protector. We think part of this is that we're taking advantage of the state purchasing program, and they have different vehicles at different times. They don't have the same vehicle all the time. This is the vehicle that's currently available that it really seems to fit our needs the best. And this Boss V-blade plow package, just makes sense as far as handling snow, and it's just much more effective. So we took the $27,000 last year from the state purchasing program for the four-wheel drive pickup. They don't, like I say, they don't have those vehicles all year round. As a matter of fact, this Ford F-350 contract runs through March of next year, and then there'll be another vehicle that will be offered similar to this. Okay. So that's our proposal to.
Let's get a motion first. So I got to have a motion to authorize the village manager to purchase a 2015 F-350 Ford pickup truck with plow package in the amount of $44,749 from Curry Motors of Frankfort, Illinois. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sussman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bowering. Now, Ms. Sussman, you had a question?
Yeah. Ed, is it apples to apples when you talk about the $27,000 vehicle that was available to this $45,000 vehicle?
Probably not. It's hard to compare them because we're talking about a base vehicle price with option packages, and the option packages have a significant impact on the final price.
So the $27,000 did not include the options?
That was the base vehicle.
And it was the $27,000 that's in, it is the $27,000 that's in the capital plan?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So this would be an overage.
Got it.
If the village board approves it.
Right, I just didn't know if
Yeah.
it was options or no options.
Were we including in the 27,000 the last time the plow system?
No.
Because this is something.
No.
Right.
Okay.
No, this is an addition.
And the reason you want to put, because the cars, the trucks now doesn't have a plow. Our
R7 it was purchased with a Western plow 10 years ago, and that plow is pretty well beat up. But the plow frame it's a GMC, and they change. Some of these plow manufacturers change these plow frames regularly. We don't think it would fit a new GMC, and it certainly wouldn't fit the Ford.
Are we going to sell the old car?
Yes.
Is it worth very much?
Here's what I have no intention or expectation, and you'll note that there is no trade-in as part of this proposal. We have a Ford minivan, 1995, I think. It's a useful run-around vehicle. I'm thinking that I would want to keep the old R7 and dispose of the old Ford minivan. But we're in the process of accumulating a short list of vehicles that we will come back to the village board with in a few months and have declared surplus and offered for sale. Perhaps this Ford minivan or the R7 would be on there. No intention of increasing our fleet size.
And I assume that in the non-winter months, this truck will be used for other purposes as well?
R7 is used extensively for the mowing operation. That's the one you see trailing around the mowers, so it's used all year round.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
What changed, what happened in the last year that led to this significant change in the budget between the budget projection and what we're being asked to spend?
We tend to rely on the state purchasing program, and they're offering vehicles periodically, all the time, and they come and go. And this $27,000 price was the four-wheel drive pickup that they had had available at that time. I chose that. I mean, that was what I was going to propose to do, is replace a four-wheel drive vehicle with another four-wheel drive vehicle. I don't remember the specifics of it, but it was the one four-wheel drive vehicle that they offered. So now we're at the point a year later where we're planning to replace this vehicle, and what's offered is this Ford 350, which seems like the appropriate vehicle for us. And this also has a diesel engine in it that increases the cost of the vehicle. So it's a more robust vehicle than perhaps it's more robust than this R7 originally was 10 years ago.
We don't house diesel fuel. We only house regular fuel, correct?
We have both.
do? We have both.
On the item commentary, it has that with the options, it's 36.7, and then the plow is 11.1.
Mm-hmm.
So that would come to about 48, yet you're requesting 44.7.
47,854.
Oh, there's
down,
a mistake.
There's a
There's
typo.
a mistake in
Okay.
there's a typo on the action proposed. Yeah.
Under
The
action
correct
proposed,
amount is
that's
47,854.
Okay, 47.8. Okay. All right.
I have a question. If you had been able to get that vehicle that was on the list last year, that was on there for $27,000, would you have had to customize that, add options to it, or would you have taken it as is?
Well, we would have taken it as is, but we would have looked to add some options, like you see this option list here.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things on this list that we're going to begin adding is a backup camera.
Mm-hmm.
That's an option that obviously increased the price. Another thing we're interested in in this day and age is the Bluetooth cell phone system. In order to get that, you have to take the XL package, you know, and whatever else comes with it. So it's well, I guess it's not unlike buying any other vehicle. You kind of are going to build it with what's available for to best suit your needs.
I'm just suggesting that for future budgeting, we might, since the state quotes base price on a kind of a stripped down vehicle for what you really want, you might want to include some funds in the budget for customizing those vehicles.
I agree. If I had to do this over, I would do it a little bit differently, and I probably would have spent more time identifying a proposed cost to put in the capital budget than to kind of pick that number and then come back to you and say, oh, by the way.
Further questions or comments?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm being dense here, but I still don't understand what caused us to be so far off on the budget projection a year ago.
They're no longer offering that vehicle.
They're no longer offering that vehicle?
Right.
And there's no other vehicle that's similarly priced? Or?
Well, we think this is the best sized vehicle to meet our needs.
But a year ago we didn't.
Well, a year ago this vehicle wasn't offered though.
Okay. Do you just think this is a better deal even though it's more money?
Better vehicle.
Better vehicle and it's worth...
More substantial vehicle.
Okay. I think anytime we see a proposal where it's almost double what we budgeted, we've really got to ask some tough questions on why that is and make sure we're comfortable with that.
And you should, and I apologize for this situation. You know, it's a matter that we did plan to replace this vehicle, and I should have done a better, more thorough job a year ago to set the stage for this actual purchase.
Just for a point of clarification, though, the comparison on the vehicles is $36,000 versus $27,000. And then the plow, which wasn't anticipated, is the additional. But you need to replace the plow because the old plow is both beat up and will not fit on the new vehicle.
Right.
Further comments?
One other question. The next item is another truck, which is identical.
Almost.
Okay. Is there, and you talked about keeping our seven. Is there any way we could purchase one of them and move our 7 over to the water sewer, and rather than purchasing 2 vehicles and see what comes around in the next system? Since you say obviously our 7 must be in somewhat decent shape if you want to keep it. Where this R21 sounds like it's leaking oil and fumes and everything.
Yeah, that truck is has some real significant issues with it. These are almost identical vehicles. Again, they're coming off the same state purchasing list. The only difference between the 2 vehicles is this one that's proposed from the water fund for the water department has a super cab on it. Other than that, they're identical vehicles.
Okay, so that's the difference between the 2 trucks, is one's got an extended cab on it?
That's it.
Okay.
Again, this is the vehicle that we're working from that's on the state purchasing list now that we think is the...
And you think there's a necessity for both of these vehicles that one of the 2 can't continue till the state bid comes out in a year?
If I had to choose one, I would choose the R21 because that's the one with the significant mechanical issues associated with it.
But you feel you need both vehicles is what my question is. This is, we're talking about $100,000 worth of vehicles. I just want to make sure that...
I'm very much aware of that. And between the salt, that's $200,000, and Public Works...
That's all we need.
Right.
You're on deck.
And then also we just need to bear in mind that the 2 vehicles, I had asked Mr. Bailey, even though one is a water and sewer fund vehicle, that we make sure that we fit it with a plow so that we have dual purpose for that vehicle, so that allows us to use vehicles across funds to make sure we're getting the full utilization of our fleet, which he's done so at my request.
Is this to replace Kevin's van?
No, in my write-up, I tried to explain the fact that originally the van was, the water department van was what was proposed. These mechanical issues with what we call R21, which is a F550 truck with a
Can I interrupt just a second? Because we're moving beyond the motion that's on the floor, because the R21 is the next one. Right. So let's deal with this one first. Unless you feel a need to compare them. If you do, we can go ahead and get a motion on the. We can have him present the next one as well. We can consider them at the same time if you want to do that.
Since both trucks are going to get purchased with a truck, can I ask a plow question? Sure. The V-plow, how do you think that's going to work with our brick parking lots? I've seen horrible things happen with V-plows used in brick lots.
What we have to do with these paver bricks, we have to have a polyurethane, a rubber blade on cutting edge on
guide
them.
strip. Yep.
And we have that now on these older Western plows. One of the plows has that. Okay. And one of the plow trucks also has rubber cutting edges.
Okay. Will these V-plows have rubber cutting edges? One will. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So I guess I would just go back to what Trustee Ballerine was saying, though. Do we really need both now?
Well, quite honestly, if I had to choose, the one to replace is R21. We don't want to invest the repair cost in that we know is there. We can continue on with R7. It has performed well to date. It's not in the shop, and it's working day to day. So, if that's what you would prefer, we can delay that purchase.
Ed, how many times have we had issues with the plow on R7?
Well, it has cracks in it now, in the plow frame. We have welded it. It was broken last year. It caused some downtime, but had to take it off and weld it. Is really what was welded back together is what happened. And I don't think we would want to buy a new plow for it. It doesn't make sense to me to buy a new plow for a truck that old.
Is the R21 plow?
R21 does not currently have a plow.
Okay.
Further comments, questions? Please call the roll. This is for the $47,854.
So tell me again, the one that's absolutely needed is the second one.
R21.
Can we vote on that first?
We don't have a motion for that yet.
Oh, so.
This is R7.
This is for R7. Or if a trustee feels like they would like to defer this, you can make a motion to table.
I'd like to move to table it.
I second that.
I learned a lot tonight, Ed.
So a motion to table by Sussman, second by Collins.
Yeah. Questions? Please call the roll on the motion to table.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Ballerine.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
And I believe on a motion to table, it needs to be to a specific time. So why don't we table this until our first meeting in October? Is that okay? To have a further discussion? Okay.
Let's say February, let's see if it breaks.
Okay, next up is the famous R21. This is a resolution authorizing the village manager to purchase a 2015 F-350 Ford pickup truck with plow package in the amount of $50,026 from Curry Motors of Frankfort, Illinois. Motion by Mr. Foley.
A second.
Second by Ms. Collins. Are there further questions about this vehicle? Did you want to add anything to what you've already said?
It's the same vehicle. The one difference, we're proposing to have a plow on it, but other than that.
And so that's really the cost difference this time around.
Right.
It's almost entirely the plow.
Right. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Ballerini.
Aye.
Trustee Collins. Aye. Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up this evening is under consideration is a kind of an open-ended preliminary budget discussion. I know that the trustees that you received this information in the last couple of days. There's a lot to go through. We do have staff here, so Director Ms. Francis will lead us through this to the degree we can, and keep in mind that we still have a couple more meetings that we're also going to be able to talk about this. So we don't feel a need that we have to somehow plow through everything tonight. So Ms. Francis, would you like to take us through this?
Absolutely.
Does it feel like old times?
It does a little bit. This is my last go-around. I'm going to hand it over to Marco Salinas. The village began the budget process back in May with staff evaluating our 10-year capital improvement plan, in addition to also reviewing the 5-year financial forecast. Staff had provided the capital plan and presented it to the village board back on July 17th, asked for some guidance as it relates to capital issues, funding, etc. It was discussed and decided that capital items would be later presented at a future board meeting, which is provided in the packet this evening. On August 7th, staff also presented the 5-year financial forecast and discussed the issues for fiscal year 2015. During that time, it was discussed with regard to the Parks and Recreation levy, which remained unchanged. Also discussed was the police pension tax levy, which was recommended at $695,931. As outlined in the actuarial report, the board directed staff to put in for the levy amount as was stated by the village's actuary, but we would budget for an additional $30,000 in expense to the police pension fund. Also, it was directed that the village deductible through IRMA remain unchanged at $50,000. Staff was also directed to increase the percentage of personnel paid by the E911 fund by 1.5%, which is the CPI. Also, the annual maintenance fee paid by the parking lot fund would increase by that same amount of 1.5%, and that's reimbursed to the general fund. Provided in the packet this evening are year-end projections, which include revenue that was received for the Northgate property. Also, despite all of that, we're still projecting a surplus. If we less the Northgate property revenue, we're just shy of $100,000. If we include the sale of the Northgate property, our projection of a surplus of $344,000 for 2014. And we were actually anticipating utilizing unassigned fund balance of approximately $29,000 for fiscal year 2014. For fiscal year 2015, it anticipates utilization of $220,000 of unassigned fund balance. Also in this budget, as presented currently, we're anticipating not utilizing any type of excess surplus, which is currently with IRMA. That is basically funds that accrues annual interest at IRMA at a rate of 7%, which is best rate. We couldn't get any better at a bank. And so it's been decided to keep that money there until we actually need it. We can draw down on it on a quarterly basis from IRMA if necessary. The village has not received the official letter notifying us of what our annual contribution to IRMA is, so what is provided in the budget as presented is an estimate. The personnel expense was modified based on final rates of the cooperative that the village is a member of. The PPO plan, the cost of the premium will remain unchanged. The HMO will only go up by approximately 3.4%. Some new items to note that are included within the budget is $15,000 for a facade improvement program. which if it is approved by the board, the village manager's office would roll out documentation to businesses with regard to that facade improvement program, and also have discussion at the board level as to different types of application processes, etc. Also included as a new item is $10,000 for special events and activities, which is also under the village manager's office. $30,000 for the Economic Development Commission, for them to utilize a contractual service to develop a marketing plan for Riverside, and $8,000 for a grant writer, which is budgeted under the police department, which the police has provided an accompanying memo. The revenue budgeted increased over fiscal year 2014 is by 1.5%. And I would recommend that if there are any, first we can go from the operating budget, if there are any specific questions as it relates to that perhaps can be addressed by staff, and then also staff's available to answer any questions as it relates to the capital plan.
Then?
Sure.
I think that's...
In the beginning are summary tables, and it's an all-fund summary, so it provides the general fund, our budget and projections for 2014, and then the 2015 budget, and shows revenue and expense for those respective years, and whether or not there is any type of excess, if there's any surplus or deficit. And that also includes for E911, motor fuel tax, capital projects, parking lot, debt service, water, sewer, and police pension, then shows a grand total for village-wide at the bottom. Please note that under capital projects, it does include the bond contingency, because we do have to in fact budget for the revenue from the bond proceeds and the expense if it is approved in November. If it is not, then obviously that issue is dead. On the following page, it shows a summary. Sure.
Could you just refresh my memory, please? The maintenance fee for the parking lot fund, that is for personnel, for staff, for redoing the surfacing, or what is the maintenance fee that goes into the general fund for?
On an annual basis, the maintenance is inclusive of sign, of crack sealing, of...
So it's for staff time?
It's for staff time.
And material?
And material, correct.
So that doesn't... Okay. Got it. So it's a transfer in effect?
Correct.
Okay.
Did you have anything else on that, Ms. Sussman?
Page?
No, I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay. On the following page, it shows it by department, the projected for the current fiscal year and the budget, and the dollars and percent change for those respective items. Also below, it shows summaries for the various funds of the village as well. Additional detail of the revenue in a summary format, and then each different department and division of the village under the general fund summary on the subsequent page. And then I have included by each individual's place settings. I was notified that the font was slightly small, and so I put a larger table for the capital expense progression for fiscal year 2015.
Start by account number, by department, is that?
I would recommend that if there are specific questions as it relates, because I don't know that you want to go by line item by line item.
But by department, so
sure.
Starting with whatever's first on your page, or the first one is per legislative or going through the whole thing. I don't know, just to see if there are questions. Can I ask just a beginning question? Could you review for us what budget assumptions we gave you for this budget?
Sure.
Do you remember offhand? I'm sorry, I should have asked you earlier today. We didn't say provide us with with a balanced budget.
No,
for
the directive
current revenues
is that current revenues did not have to equal current expense.
That was really
that was something that we discussed when we did the financial forecast.
Okay, that's fine.
obviously we have the revenues and the different notes associated with the revenues for the general fund.
Can I just want to ask a question. Is anybody in favor of using some of the $150,000 IRMA surplus for 2015?
150.
Oh, the 75,000. Well, the 70. Excuse me.
Yeah.
The 78,000. 78,000. Do you think that we need to hold on to all of it, or can some of it go back into the general fund?
I would recommend, we're getting 7%. We have more than enough cash on hand at this point in time, and we're getting a significant amount of interest from IRMA because they have the ability of pulling resources and getting a better rate of return than the village would on their own.
So leave it there and
I would
use
leave it.
the unassigned?
And you said that can be drawn quarterly?
Yes. IRMA sends us a notification quarterly because communities are deciding to elect the higher deductibles, and so if they have a large deductible and they want to draw that down, they're able to.
That's good to hear, because in past years we've emptied the IRMA account.
Yes.
So
I think over the last 2 years we've decided not to, but previously we had.
Since you were here.
It's nice if you can draw quarterly instead of that it's just once a year decision.
Yes.
So. Right, no, I understand. I'm looking for ways of filling that $200,000.
And like I said, this is a preliminary number for our IRMA, but I'd rather be extremely conservative because it is based on our loss. So we have an experience modifier, and we had 1 year in there that wasn't so fantastic, and so it's rated against how other communities did during those years. So even though also a portion of our IRMA contribution is also based on our revenue as well, and that has gone down over the years.
Okay. So then looking at the boards, right, that would be the first?
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that under Plan Commission well, we talked about this, the money for the court reporter is back in.
We will have to put that back in because it was discussed after the materials had already gone out.
Okay.
And Director Apt is here, and she would be able to provide us with what approximately that dollar amount is.
Historically, we've used somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500. I'm sorry. Looks like historically we've spent somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500 a year on a court reporter for the Planning Commission and Zoning Board in the past. So, we can pick a number somewhere in that ballpark.
But wasn't at that time, weren't we using the court reporter to take minutes as well? And I believe what you're interested in is having a verbatim transcript of public hearings.
For the public hearings.
Just for the public hearings.
Correct.
Is everybody okay with that?
So had we decided that that's what we wanted to do as a board? I don't recall.
That's what we're trying to decide.
Oh, okay. So the question's being asked, do we want to do that? I guess I want to know what we're getting for that. Does that buy it? How quickly do we get the transcript if we're paying for it like that?
I would say the more you're willing to give them, the faster they
Sure.
are willing to give you your minutes. So I'm sure typically they will have a rate that's for a quick turnaround versus a rate that's for a more typical, week or two turnaround.
I want to know that before I vote on that, because if we're still, if that's the difference in being able to get matters in 1 week to the board as opposed to waiting 2 or 3 weeks, then maybe I'm willing to spend that money. If it doesn't make a difference, or if the cost to get it a 2-day turnaround is too much, then it's not worth spending the money on.
I would say that,
in my view.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I actually disagree, Doug. I think that there's a huge difference between the notes. This is not about the note taker at all. This is just that there's a huge, if you don't go to the meetings, and we can't always go to the meetings, there is a huge difference between what the minutes say and what the actual commissioners and the petitioners say. By calling, I end up calling the commissioners to find out for explanations about their votes, because there's not necessary, the minutes don't tell me enough to be able to vote on it. Or actually in the last vote, one of the commissioners called me afterward and said, well, why didn't you call me? I would have explained the way I voted. And I thought, that's the kind of information that we're missing. And so I don't think it makes sense to make decisions based on incomplete information. I understand the need of residents, and don't misunderstand me, to get a turnaround when they're waiting for an answer. But I don't think a vote based on incomplete information, I mean, I think you have to balance that. And if it costs more, then I think, and if we want to accomplish both, in other words, providing the Board of Trustees with a complete understanding of the discussion that goes on at these meetings and making sure that residents get an expedited turnaround, then I think we should pay for it. And I'm not willing to I'm not willing to sacrifice a misunderstanding of what occurs at a commission meeting for expediency.
Just like we've had a couple of ZBA things come in front of the board over the last couple months that were not done with the transcripts. Do you feel that any of those minutes were lacking in clarity?
Yes, I do. The one I just described was lacking, and I think in both instances, I know in both instances, I said to Peter and to President Sells as well, we need the transcripts. I need the transcripts. Maybe other people don't want to read them, but I thought there was incomplete. This is not the fault, again, of the minute taker. I think it's just hard to capture what people say. And the fact that actually somebody called me and said, a commissioner called and said, why didn't you call me? I thought, well,
I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying, Trustee Sussman, but I think that's what we're paying staff to do, is to pick up the critical facts and the reasons, and to make sure those get into the minutes and make sure those get into the record that we see. I guess I'm okay with paying for the transcript, but I don't want to wait for it. I mean, we've increased the Community Development Department budget substantially in the last year.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason we did that was so that we can get this type of quality from our staff, and so we can get this quick turnaround. We scheduled the Planning Commission meeting so that we could have that quick turnaround. We've done a lot to accomplish that. And now to say we're going to continue to pay transcribers and attorneys to do the work, I don't find that to be acceptable.
I guess I disagree. I don't think we hired a director of community development for her note-taking, her minute-taking ability. That's not, that to me wouldn't have been a criteria.
Mr. Valerie, did you have something?
Are we just talking about the Planning Commission here, or are we talking about all commissions?
We're talking about public hearings, so we're not even talking about that many. We're just talking about the ones where there's a public hearing.
Only when there's a public hearing.
Well, if I may, I mean, our discussion is kind of moot if we find out that the reporter can give us a decent turnaround, right? Because if the court reporter at the price we're talking about can give us a 1 or 2 day turnaround, I'd prefer not to spend the $2,000 a year or whatever it is, but I don't mind spending it if it helps, if trustees feel like it helps them make better decisions.
Well, if the Planning and Zoning Board meets on a Wednesday night, which it does, and we meet on a Thursday night, and the hearing goes on for an hour and a half, that's asking a lot of anybody to describe it, to transcribe it, and then you'd be giving it to us and we wouldn't have time to read it anyway.
It wouldn't be on our agenda that quick.
We're talking about a week.
It would be a week and a day late.
At the very most. At the very least, it would be a week.
Which I can tell you in the industry is normal. That's the way villages do it.
So we're really saying if they could get us the minutes in 5 days, 4 days, something like that, not 1 day or 2 days.
Well, that's if you don't want the minutes with your initial packet. I mean, we try to get the packet out on the Friday, but then, you know, they might not be able to turn around the minutes in 2 days, so you might not get your minutes until
that's fine with
Monday
me
or
if
Tuesday.
We know that that's going to happen. I mean, we know when there's a hearing.
I mean, if it's a short one, obviously those minutes can get turned around, but when you get into something
So why don't you just contact the reporter and find out what the turnaround times is and the various costs?
Thank you.
I can contact, reach out to our last.
Because I think
right. So that's great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Absolutely correct.
I would just like to point out, though, that we did reduce the variation fee last year. That fee did used to cover the cost of a court reporter. Now, with it only being $500 for the variation fee, that is not going to cover the fee for publishing, for the sign, for the mailing, and a court reporter, just so that you are aware that that's not going to cover the cost if we do add that going forward.
I remember the discussion. Thank you.
And that was the reason we reduced the fee.
It was because we were going to be doing it in-house.
Yeah, we were doing it in-house. So now we're going back on what we
Well,
started.
we
So are
reduced
we
the-
going to increase the fee again?
That's not why
That's not why I voted for it. We voted, go ahead.
For fairness.
Yeah, we said it was too
Yeah,
much to ask
right.
residents to pay that amount.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it.
Right, and we understood that it
We should have had a
wasn't
court
covering the
reporter at that
cost.
meeting.
We understood that it wasn't. What was that, Joseph?
We should have had a court reporter at that meeting, so we all understand it differently.
That one, safe environment, there are costs associated with safe environment. They do flyers and they have speakers and all that kind of stuff, but there's no budget for them?
A lot of the time, well, more recently, that cost has been absorbed by the police department.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Because they don't have an established budget. They have it for many years.
I know they've been spending money though, so that's with your permission that they've been spending. Okay, Economic Development Commission.
It's for the marketing plan, right?
It's for the marketing plan. It's for not quite understanding.
Sonia, do you want to, with regard to the Economic Development Commission, do you want to explain their request, their budget request?
Sure. At our last meeting, which was just last week, they presented a budget items that they would like on there, and it came to around $60,000, and it kind of encapsulated some of the major things I think that Trustee Collins went over that they've been talking about for the past year. So I kind of asked them to go through that list that they had there and kind of prioritize what they wanted to try to accomplish for 2015, and we could present that then forward in the budget. And so after some discussion, they kind of said that's the stuff that they have the most information on kind of up front, and felt that that's something they could go with and probably get accomplished in 2015. The one was for a marketing plan. They did have a proposal from Tommaso Made, who did the marketing plan for the Berwyn Development Corporation. So I guess they had reached out, it was before I was here, but they reached out to Tommaso Made to get an idea of what it would cost for them to do a marketing plan for the village. So they had a proposal for that kind of ranged from, I believe, about $25,000 to $35,000 for the whole process. The other thing they wanted to do was get the visitor center finished. They had done, they had put together an RFP of sorts, kind of for the visitor center as a whole, but then over the course of the summer they had actually accomplished some of the items in there. So, but they would like to see that finished, getting the sign up, possibly getting the kiosk in there, and finishing getting some electric and lighting and stuff in there. So they wanted to see that. So part of that amount also includes roughly about $5,000 for finishing up the visitor center. So that's kind of what their proposal was going forward and prioritizing what they thought perhaps in 2015 could be their thing to do.
Well, there was $30,000 according to the notes for the marketing plan, so then their budget should be $35,000.
Well, I didn't go with the top end of what the proposal was. I went with the lower end of that.
Let me just keep going on this for a while.
That's what this is for.
I have a couple of questions about this. One is, I think, Sonia or Elle, I know you're new to this, excuse me, Pat. I like the way the Historical Commission and the Cable Commission actually put together an explanation of how the money is going to be used, and we don't have anything. That's new information to me, that it was actually, the marketing plan was actually based on a bid that they had gotten. So I think that would be useful going forward to actually understand that. That's just one comment. I'm sorry, did you?
I was just going to say that when Sonia and I were discussing this at the meeting, it would obviously have to be put out for bid. So I think Sonia's just using the 30,000 figuring it would be somewhere around that. But I don't think that we could provide information on the bid because we would have to start from the beginning. We're not saying we would go with this bid, because it would have to be put out for bids from other people and get ideas of what does a marketing plan mean? What are we looking at for a marketing plan for the village? Not necessarily, this particular one.
Right.
But the 30,000 is probably.
That's a segue actually for my next question, which is about the process that it was discussed a couple of, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, about the commissions and staff and the board. And I think my question is this, I wasn't at that discussion, but I've had many discussions about that. My understanding was that the commissions were going to propose, we're going to be talking and proposing the work, and then staff would do the work on it and then come to the board, and the board would sort of have this discussion and kind of with staff and the commission figure out which direction to go.
Right.
So my question is, why is the budget for this in the EDC budget and not in Sonia's budget or not in the village manager's budget? It's a question about policy and everything we've been talking about, and even about kind of the signs, you know, what's happened in who's leading the charge. And I'm not saying that I think the charges are great, but I know that this board had a very lengthy discussion, Joe, about the policy and procedure, and this just doesn't seem to fit within that.
And ultimately, staff, the request needs to be made to staff to make a purchase on behalf of a commission. Staff goes forth if it's within their purchasing authority. Department heads are only authorized to make purchases if a department head gives direction to their staff to go ahead and make a purchase. Then that is fine, and that is an approved method of making that particular purchase. If it is over $2,500, it needs to be approved by myself and the interim finance director for it to move forward. And then anything beyond that, up to $20,000, would need to be approved by us with various competitive pricing, etc. If it's over that, then it would need to come to the village board. If it's something that's more of a philosophical, which this marketing plan I think would need to be somewhat, the scope of services would need to be vetted at the level of the commission and then also brought back to the board before we send it out for RFP. I think that process would need to bear out before it's actually sent out and we get proposals back.
I think that even adds to my point that it's really a village staff or board authorization, not a EDC authorization. And I am grateful for the work that the EDC does. I know they work very hard. I made me sit up when I saw the $30,000.
Yeah, I think part of there's a little bit of cart and horse issue here, because what we were talking about before was with regard to like special events. You know, if you want to have a concert, or if you want to have a bike. So this is in some ways thematically different. I think what the EDC is looking for before they go out and do the extensive work of going through the philosophical discussion about what would a marketing plan entail, what kind of things we'd be looking for, what's the difference between marketing and branding. I think what they're looking for is a sense from the board whether that's something that the trustees actually want to pursue. And before they go out and do all that work, and then we say, you know, that really wasn't something that we had in mind. So I really think that in some ways that's what this, I agree with you in terms of we need to rethink about exactly where this budget item would go. Because ultimately it's going to be administered by staff anyway. None of our commissions, as all of you know, none of our commissions have purchasing or contracting authority. You know, only the staff and the village board has that. But I think that the reason they have brought it to us is because they want a sense from the trustees whether this is something you want them to move forward on and look more closely into.
Right. There's no point in doing a lot of work on this if we're going to say no, this is not something that we want to look at. So they're looking for direction here as to whether or not this is something we want to
with
pursue.
it being time for budgeting and them not having a meeting in August, the hand was kind of getting forced quickly here with the September meeting and the budget coming up. They wanted to at least have something to present that this, you know, we would like to see if there will be funding for us to move forward with certain items that they've been discussing this year. So.
Should this be on our agenda as a recommendation from the EDC to develop a marketing plan? Because I don't know anything about what they have in mind.
That's what they're looking for. This is something that we would want them to.
Right, and so
they did make a recommendation.
We should have a recommendation from them with a detailed description of what they want to do.
Well, I understand what Ellen's saying, which is they don't want to do all the work.
anything.
Excuse me, what Pat's saying.
Ellen.
What Pat's saying. What, yeah, I always agree with you. I understand that they're actually don't want to do the work if they don't think there's any interest in pursuing it.
Right, and I'm not suggesting, and I agree 100%, but they must have something in mind of what they want to do here. And so they can have a discussion at their meeting, and then staff can put their recommendation in the form of an agenda item for us to have a discussion.
Well, maybe that's the best way to proceed then, is to tell them that we're interested in hearing more from them about what they have in mind, some specifics, and then we can address this in October.
Ben, I don't really see it as anything different than what you said was for an event. I see it as the same kind of process. I mean, Sonia's not going to go out and do a lot of work on this without asking the board if it's something that the board wants her to do. So I see it as part of the same, at least I thought it was part of the same policy discussion.
Well, I think we've actually accomplished it, because with what Mr. Pollack just said, if our response to the EDC is yes, this is something we're interested in, but we need to have it more flushed out, that's in keeping with the policy that we set at that
right.
meeting.
Yeah.
So are we all okay with that?
I guess my question then would be, if we are providing that directive tonight, and then they come back at some later point in time and say, well, here's what we would like to present, where would that be in our budget? If it's not going to be here now, when we approve a budget, where would it be?
I'm going to leave that to the finance folks to figure out the proper place.
I mean, I just see this as a placeholder.
It basically
because they can't spend any money.
Right.
How soon could we get a detailed or somewhat detailed recommendation from the EDC? When do they meet again?
Well, their meeting is the second Thursday of the month, so that would be
I would hope they would spend more than one meeting developing that.
October 11th.
Can you the 11th?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess if...
So it would be your second meeting in October, I would be able to bring something.
If they could put together something where we could put a real number in the budget, that'd be the preference, but if we have to put in a placeholder...
Well, I have a proposal.
Right, they have a proposal from one that kind of
company
explains what what that particular firm would be looking at doing, and what that $30,000 would entail is in that proposal already.
Well, then that should be easy for them to get us something.
Except I would hope that they would review that and determine, is that what they want? Do they want something more than that? Do they want something less than that?
Well, and the thing is that if we put it out for bid, marketing firms are going to be very different in how they go about approaching a marketing project. So
well, we'll have to do an RFP, so we're going to have to be pretty specific on what we want the response to include.
Yeah, we might want to be the ones defining the scope versus...
So I'm just saying that's what they should be deciding on, is what they want that marketing plan to include, to recommend to us, and then we get a chance to decide.
Exactly.
As the one who started this in the first place, Pat, I hear what you say about a placeholder, and I'm wondering...
No, see, Ellen said...
Ellen actually said that.
I hear what the board said about placeholder.
We're going to hold up.
I guess I'm actually okay now with putting the $30,000 somewhere. It doesn't guarantee we're going to spend it.
So no.
Now that I understand better what's going on.
And that was their concern, was that if there's nothing in the budget, then will this be something that we can't even consider for this year? So
I think that's fair, and I certainly would like to hear the ideas. And if putting $30,000 in a preliminary budget is what will get the commission to talk about it some more, I'm okay with that, having gone full circle.
Okay, so we're on the page. Okay.
And leaving it in EDC?
For now, and then again, the interim finance director and the village manager can determine whether there's a more appropriate place for it.
And the EDC is aware that if it's under their budget, that they don't have the authority to just spend that money, that needs to go through staff. They are totally aware of that. Yeah, they are. We had this discussion.
Yes, that's been made very clear.
Yes, they're absolutely aware of that.
Okay. Anything else on EDC? Okay.
No, I think I killed that one well.
No, that's good.
So the next one is the Historical Commission for me. And I don't know if Jessica, if you want me to go through it, or if any, Joe, we had questions about that, or if you want to go do it, you want me to do it?
I got my answer. There was a
Yeah, I got my
separate
answer.
page which was fine for me.
A supplement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was an explanation. That was good. Thank you for doing that.
And the $7,700 is because they buy the books on Riverside in advance, and also they buy the ornaments in advance. And then it comes, so there's really a net between the revenues and the expenditures.
$700 was contractual fee to digitize the collection.
Some of it is. Some of it is 5,000 if they need it. These are actually placeholders too.
Okay, but it wasn't 77 to make ornaments and stuff. That was, most of it was the digital.
Right, and actually the ornaments and the books, because they order them in volume, go for longer than 1 year, 1 calendar year anyway.
Okay, so let's move on to the, is that all for the commissions? We'll move on to the village manager. And do you want to just give us a little more detail about the facade, what you have in mind for the facade improvement program?
Sure. There are a lot of communities that have facade programs. It is a 50-50 where the property owner would spend the money up front. Some villages have it where if a property owner, perhaps they have extensive facade improvements that they want to do and they get a loan from a local bank, you can work with, for example, Riverside Bank, to then set up a loan agreement so that we're actually turning around and reimbursing Riverside Bank, and so they only get a loan for 50% of that cost. So there's a number of ways in which we can set this up, but there's an application process, and so it would be basically on a first come, first served basis is what how I'm thinking of it, and obviously this program is meant to be tweaked. It's only in our beginning stages, but basically it would include any type of signage, lighting, etc. as it relates. Some communities even let it go as far as whether or not a property owner wants to do tuck pointing to improve their facade as well. So it can be for a number of things, but it would only be a 50-50, and we can put a cap as to which one property owner can have up to $5,000 as a reimbursement. So they could spend more than 10, but they would only get reimbursed up to 5.
So this is somewhat like what the discussion we just had. The question is this something that the board is interested in entertaining? If it is, then Ms. Francis would bring back a much more detailed description,
Correct.
The application process, that kind of thing.
Correct. I'm particularly interested in whether or not we're going to try and replace the many signs in our business district that do not meet our sign.
Right, that's my point. If the Planning Commission is looking at sign ordinance, this would seem to tie right in with that,
Right.
that if we're going to have changes, that we can assist in that process.
Absolutely, and perhaps we give preferential treatment this first year to those that are doing that, and then if there's any funds remaining available, we can rank the different applications that we receive, etc.
So how much do signs cost, Doug? Does $15,000, it would be $30,000 altogether, right? The 50-50.
Right.
Does that go very far?
No, not very far at all. I don't think. First of all, let me comment on Trustee Collins' comments. I know the Planning and Zoning Commission is looking at, one of the things they're looking at is to recommend that the board direct staff to actively enforce the amortization schedule that's already in the sign ordinance, but hasn't been enforced. And what that does is say the amortization schedule requires non-conforming signs to be removed over a period of time based on their value. So signs that are $5,000 or less have to be replaced within 1-2 years, something like that. But essentially, the bottom line is all non-conforming signs will, if this is approved as it's moving forward now, would be eliminated in what, 4 to 7 years. I don't remember the exact time frame. Most of them probably in less than 4 years, because most of them are less value. So that would, there would be progress in that, likely. As far as the amount of money, under the new sign regulations that are under consideration now, and I'm going to assume that they get approved, and they may or may not get approved, but if they get approved, box signs will be eliminated.
Right.
Those are the cheap signs. So that means that a new sign for a business, one new sign will likely be $5,000 or more, based on my limited experience in that area. From what I've seen, maybe it can be done for less, I don't know. But from the signs I've seen people spend $10,000, $15,000 on a new sign program for a storefront. So, yeah, $15,000 doesn't go very far. So, and that was going to be one of my questions is, you know, what is that number based on? And, you know, it doesn't seem like that's nearly enough to really get anything done.
And if we decide that, if we get a number of applications and we decide that all the applications are warranted for the 50/50 reimbursement, obviously we can come back to the board and do a budget amendment as it relates to that.
Now, another program we could consider that would be less expensive for the village would be limiting the grants to design development. In other words, just offering to pay for or pay half of the cost for the architect's or the designer's preparation of plans, and then we have some review authority over those plans, and we're able to work with businesses to make sure that the plans they're developing for their storefront facade improvement is what benefits the storefront, the retailer obviously, but also is consistent with what we're doing on Burlington Street, for example. That may be, if we have the money to actually pay for facade improvements, that sounds great. I'd love to do that, but I'm afraid that's going to be cost prohibitive for us. But just a design grant might.
But don't we have the authority to review those things in any case?
On a limited basis. And I shouldn't have said that. I mean, that's really not the point. The point is not to establish a review process. The point is to provide financial assistance to the retailer and pay for half or all of their cost for the architecture.
I think the level of detail we're talking about now is really the level. That will be the discussion that will be had if the board wants to have this $15,000 in here, and then we can come back and decide whether it's going to be a design element or. So really, the question is are you interested in having the $15,000 there for a potential facade program? That's really the question. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Are there other examples of where we've had a code change that requires an establishment to spend money to bring it up to code? Most of the times there's not, it's grandfathered in. You don't have to change it. I just wondered if we've ever subsidized a code change before.
In our 6 years, I don't
think
remember
of any.
one.
I just want to make sure that I can't actually think of a code change where there's been it's precedence to.
It's legal. I mean, municipalities have the authority to amortize non-conforming buildings, structures, uses, signs, whatever, as long as the amortization schedule allows the owner to get financial value out of that structure or sign. So you'll see a non-conforming sign. I mean, the way that the amortization schedule is set up, it's based on the value of the sign, so that if a sign, and I'm just making up numbers because I don't recall the exact numbers, but if a sign costs $5,000, then the life of that sign is three. They get to use it for 3 more years before they have to replace it. If it's $10,000, they may get to use it for 7 more years.
I feel like we're getting bogged down here. Can we try to move forward a little bit? So we're going to leave the 15 in for the facade.
Sure. Is there any other questions as it relates to village manager? I was hoping to maybe move into some of the other departments since we have department heads here. Perhaps community development, or are there any finance related items?
I
just think because we got this just 2 days ago, I'd just like to ask that, and because staff's here, maybe we can hear from staff and then have a subsequent meeting so that there's time to ask any questions or to sit down with you, for instance, to get some of the questions answered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like you don't want me to go through all my list.
No, and if there was
No, you
anything
don't.
that specifically,
Bob wants
if
me
there was
to.
anything specifically that the board saw and was completely opposed to, would be helpful to know this evening, because then we could just pull that out.
That's fine, I'll wait and do it.
How about, though, let's hit the CIP, since we have the staff here, because there are some things in here that I had thought that we were not going to do. So obviously the community development is the streetscape, that has to be in here, but how about public works? Were there any questions? I was under the impression that for example, the contaminated soil removal was not going to be included in the budget, in the CIP. It's this gray, the one that you got. This is the one I can read.
We're just trying to get organized over here.
Yeah,
I'll share it with Ellen.
I thought we did take that one out.
Okay. Which one, Joe, did we take out?
I thought we took out the contaminated soil removal also.
I thought we did, well.
So, can someone just remind me then how we are resolving the issue of additional storage? Because isn't that what we were going to take out the soil for?
Well, look up, you see garage rehab of $40,000. We were going to rehab the garage behind the
And there was
village.
enough, I thought we didn't have enough room in there, even if we rehabbed it.
Was it-
Could we ask Mr. Bailey, because he put a supplemental information in here anyway.
What was the question?
The question was, we thought if we don't move the dirt, what don't we still have a storage issue? How are you addressing your storage issue if we don't move the dirt?
You know, I was looking at this more of a village-wide storage issue, not specifically to Public Works. You know, it was just a suggestion. You know, as a matter of fact, I had some conversation with the previous village manager about this, and he was supportive of it. But like I said in my comments, that if the village board isn't supportive of it, that pile of contaminated soil could stay where it is.
So the garage rehab that's under Public Works is cost shared with Parks and Recreation, because what we're talking about doing is basically rebuilding the garage that's attached to the township hall. And will that meet your needs?
Yes. So that's what your memo is about? Okay. Okay.
Mr. Powell?
So my question on that is, what about the trash cans? We've got to get rid of those, in my opinion. They can't be sitting out there on our riverfront anymore.
I'm tasked with creating an alternate storage location for them by the back door against the building. We'll create a concrete pad there, you know, again, right up against the building, so that we're planning to do that this year. As a matter of fact, what I would plan to do is use a contractor from one of the more, you know, like the York Road reconstruction project.
Would you put a fence around it or a wall?
Personally, I think it should have screening around it. That's not necessarily, you know, I don't know if that was exactly what I was tasked with. It was certainly to get them away from the riverfront. And again, it's excavating that planting bed, probably putting a curb around it, around the perimeter of that with a concrete pad for them to set on.
I'd like to see it. I can't picture where you're talking about putting those, but it would seem like if they're still visible, they ought to be screened. So
the resetting of the railroad paver bricks, that's the platform. Given the historic nature of that building, is there any grant opportunity you think there to help fund any of that?
I'm not so sure about something like that. We could certainly apply for it. I think we may have applied previously to ITEP.
Okay.
we could do that. Look into other.
So anything else for Public Works under the CIP?
So we're taking out the contaminated soil.
Yes.
And then we are adding in the rehab of the garage, which I think is what we should do because that garage is falling apart.
Yes.
And we would demand that of our residents to take care of dilapidated garages, and we should do it. We should demand it of ourselves. We should fix that.
Let's see if we should look. Did you have
I don't think we should put a nickel in that garage. I think creating a campus for our vehicles over in the Public Works area, removing the soil, putting in a pole barn that's large enough to help Ron and Ed in the same location. That structure behind here, it's going to $40,000 to rehabilitate that garage.
80.
I don't even believe that. I don't even believe that. I'd like to see a bid on that. I'd like to see a line-by-line bid on that. There's no way that you can do that for 80 grand. There's no way.
And make it look good.
$80,000 is a lot of money. You build a lot of garages for 80 grand.
Not a garage of that size. The structure of it, the foundation that it's sitting on is in disrepair.
But what are we going to do with it, Mike?
Tear it down.
Tear it down.
Tear it down.
I'm
Remove
with
it.
Mike.
Take that money, remove the dirt, put a pole barn up that's large enough to handle Ron's bus, Ed's equipment. He needs space, Ron needs space, albeit it not being a convenient spot. But that location is just, the garage is an eyesore. It's an eyesore from the river, it's an eyesore from the park, it's an eyesore from every angle, from the bridge, from the swinging bridge. I don't think it's worth putting a nickel into that building.
But it's used now, right?
Not really.
It's utilized by Parks and Rec.
Only by
for
Parks
their
and Rec.
equipment, so we need to figure out where to put all of
It's a
that.
home for the soccer nets and goals and balls and t-ball equipment and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I think the structure has met its useful life, and I think that to put that money into a structure that really doesn't help Ed very much, it's more to help Ron, and I want to help both of them. But I think that we have more space across the river, and having the mechanic there who can work on Ron's vehicle, just having all the resources, the fuel's there, the mechanic is there, it's better storage, it's more protected, it's a locked, fenced-in area. I just think it's a better area to keep all the village vehicles in one spot.
I would add, too, I tend to agree with what you just said, Trustee Foley, but I would add, too, I think we need to have a vision of what that area is going to look like.
Why does there have to be anything back there?
Well, I think that someday that should be a beautiful space.
And I think that
it's our riverfront.
I think by taking down that garage, I probably won't be around long enough to see it, but I'm a big proponent of talking further about the youth center. And its life. And I'm seeing something in here about an aluminum type roof for the youth center. And redoing the heating upstairs in the youth center. Again, we're talking about a structure that has met its useful life. I am not here to talk about tearing that down right now. I'm more interested in the garage, but I think if that garage comes down, then I think people are more likely to see the dilapidated structure that the youth center is. And I think that area could be better served. This garage that's behind us here, it occupies a very small footprint. It's hard to get into, it's hard to pull out of. He's going to have a large van. There's going to be people parking over here, village employees parking in this lot. You got the farmer's market there. What if we have to get something out of the garage and get the farmer's market going on? I just don't think that's a great spot.
Let me ask this question, because I tend to, at the Public Works facility, leaving aside the contaminated soil, let's say that the soil stays there, is there a way of redesigning that area over there that we would have room to put up the kind of structure that Mr. Foley's talking about, that we could address our storage needs over there without having to spend $110 to move the soil?
Most obvious location would be to consume part of the parking lot in the, in the front of it. It's not, it's never full, or rarely full. But as far as the operation area, we need to keep a fairly large area for heavy equipment use, movements and that kind of stuff. The perimeter is occupied by the salt storage shed to the west. There's a brown metal storage building which is full, and then we have
structure, the tarpaulin building, right?
Well, that's the salt storage building.
Okay.
And then to the would be to the south of this brown metal building that there's water and sewer pieces, repair pieces stored in there. In the winter, the chipper is stored in there. There's street light items stored in there. And then just to the south of that, there's this concrete structure with bins. It's really for storing stone and gravel and that kind of stuff. We de-water material also there. So then, there isn't any other real open space other than the parking lot.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
To the south of the parking lot, there's a grassy area. Is that village property or no? On the street. So just west of the driveway that would pull in. Is that lot ours or no?
I don't believe it is. I think the footprint of that parcel is really
the fenced-in area,
reflective of the fence. It's probably unincorporated Riverside Township. Definitely a floodplain. Doesn't,
so that would not be.
I think it'd be very problematic to try to build there.
At some point, will we ever legally have to do something with the contaminated soil?
Not to my knowledge. As long as it stays where it is, that's the site it came from. And nature's reclaiming it.
And it can be redistributed amongst the site that it came from.
Right.
Can it not?
Sure.
So can it be used as sub-base for the rebuilding of a structure, i.e. backfill in a new structure on the same property?
Depends, as you probably know better than I do, but it depends upon the characteristic of the material.
Sure.
It does have the compaction and so on and so forth. And it's contaminated, it has a variety of organic materials in it, or
so if you basically spread it around, and you put a slab on top of it, and you put a pole barn on top of it, problem solved.
So am I right that the board would like this matter investigated further?
Yes.
It looks like we need to compare the costs and the risks of
I think
right?
your current garage that houses the majority of your vehicles, which also houses, I believe, your NIPAS trailer is parked in there as well. So over the years, Ed's building has also become the home to other vehicles that are not public works related. And albeit they need a place, Ed is kind enough to share his space with them and make room for them, and I think that's great. But, I really think that if we're talking vehicles, all the vehicles should be in one place, and they're fueled and serviced and stored all in one area. And it just makes sense. This location back here, this garage, it's done. It's done.
So I think with the right kind, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I think with the right kind of plan, we could address this contaminated soil issue at the same time, because we would be able to cover a massive and spread a massive amount of that soil out and cover it, which the EPA approves, covering it with concrete.
That soil can remain there and be redistributed amongst the site.
Yeah.
As long as a piece of it does not leave the site, that can be redistributed on site.
All right, so we'll look at this.
Just one more question. Then do we also want to know how much it would cost to take down the garage?
Part of this has to be dismantling of that garage. We can't leave it the way it is.
The garage has to go, right.
Which, to take a garage like that out, I can't imagine it being more than $20,000.
But then that's what you do with it. You have to plant grade, whatever you do with it. But there has to be, that's a part of this whole.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So anything else with Public Works on the CIP?
Can I ask just, you're okay with moving the storage to Public Works?
Well, with obvious considerations to convenience, the bottom line is we need additional storage. We don't have enough. The genesis of that recommendation was previous discussions about I believe $110,000 to remove contaminated soil, and then an additional cost for a pole barn, which for about half of that cost, we could rehab the building that we currently use that's more convenient for us. That was never really designed for our usage, but we can really repurpose it and design it and really get the most out of that building, and also address the eyesore issue, because obviously we can make it look however we want.
But I believe the $80,000 figure was based on something looking a lot like what it looks now, just like a concrete.
Certainly it wouldn't be anything ornamental.
That was not an original structure to this building. So, you know, by removing it, you're just making this building look more grand and in its original state. You're also opening up more green space along the river.
Well, I mean, you'll be part of the discussion about looking for some other ways to handle our storage issues. Then. Right. Okay. Moving on. Again.
There's mowers here, three different mowers. Are those all? Is that on a replacement schedule, or why are those all in this year?
There's two types of mowers there. One is what's called a zero-turn mower, and then a wide area mower. Some years back, historically, these zero-turn mowers, for whatever reason, were on a 3-year replacement schedule. I believe the reason is that the department found that after 3 years they started deteriorating, and that maintenance cost started escalating, so that it seemed prudent to replace them on a 3-year schedule. You know, we're beyond that now, and we've I think they've been in the budget in the past and deferred, and that's probably how they're all getting in the same budget year. This wide area mower, like I mentioned, was scheduled for 2016, and during mowing operations this year, the rear axle fell off, and you know, it's partly an indication of attrition or wear and tear. And then the village manager suggested, well, you know, that should move that up into 2015. That's what he recommended. So that's kind of how they all got in the same year. Plus, you can probably see the maintenance cost is escalating for those.
So all three of these are having severe maintenance problems?
You know, all except the oldest one. The oldest is zero-turn mower, and that's really more of an age issue with that oldest one. One of the issues with that newer zero-turn mower, they're both John Deere's, by the way, both of the zero-turn mower, and again, those are things that we're purchasing from the state purchasing program. It appears that there was some significant design changes with that year, and one that really kind of sticks out in my mind is the company put the power takeoff, it's a power takeoff clutch assembly on the bottom of the mower. And those mowers are up and over and down curbs every day repeatedly, and that's a very vulnerable place for that mower to have that, and we've replaced over the years probably 3 at least of those. And you know, there might be some other issues with that particular year mower or something like that, but it has been a maintenance headache. We've done some significant repairs to it, and then we think that there's probably bearing failure about to occur with the engine. So,
and now we do have that program now that we input all our new equipment in, that we can keep track of all this?
We do have that, and we're implementing as we speak. I think, I don't know if it's actually been paid for yet, but it's in the, but we're already starting to, you have to upload, it's really database based, you know, so we're starting to add information to that. That's a good example of what we're attempting to do here, is track this type of stuff and have, because right now the repair expenses that I capture are really from a purchase requisition system that I implemented 2 years ago. So that's what I'm really drawing from for this information. It's the same as if you had it after the fact, but at any rate, that's what that's really the genesis for that suggestion at the time, was to get that. That's a fleet maintenance program, a software program.
How many mowers do we have in total?
We have, those are the 3 primary mowers. We have some older ones that are more tractor type. You might see one around town towing a water truck, a water tank for instance.
I just don't like replacing. I mean, so we basically have 3 mowers that we use, and we're replacing all 3 of them in this year.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily make that point. That's an issue. If you didn't want to replace all 3 of those mowers, I would want to keep the older one, the older zero turn. That's been the most problem-free, and I'll probably live to regret that. But clearly, it's performed a lot better, and the newest one has just been a disaster.
Ed, how often do we mow the parks during the summer months? Are they mowed once, twice a month? Or is it, I know it's an ongoing mowing.
The ball fields are mowed on a weekly basis, and we have a cycle for the whole village. It starts in the northwest part of the village, and it comes right down through, including like over by Forbes Avenue. It probably takes several weeks. It depends on weather and maybe some other things.
To mow the whole village? It takes several weeks, okay.
Yeah. During the summer, and this is a good example of a year with as long as it's raining, that grass is growing just like everybody's lawn, I suppose. So
it's fair to say those mowers are in use every day?
40 hours a week.
40 hours a week.
For weeks on end.
Right. So I think we as a board have talked about making a commitment to beautifying the village and having staff to do so, and that staff needs equipment.
I understand, but the problem is when they're all being replaced in the same year, they're all going to need to be replaced in the same year again 5 years from now or whatever. So I'd rather it was staggered so that we're not replacing all of our equipment in 1 year.
I understand that point, but the reason that they're all being asked to be replaced now is because they've been asked to be replaced earlier and it's been deferred. So then we end up with having to replace them all at one time. So it's not just a matter of making a commitment to that now, it's a matter of making a commitment to, are we going to follow a replacement schedule or not?
I'd be up for talking about doing 2 of the 3.
That's what I would prefer.
And I would also like to talk, there's another item on here about a utility vehicle, a Gator type vehicle. I'd like us to put a little bit more money into that and continue to look at something that can be implemented for snow removal on sidewalks and public areas.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So which one of these is the old one?
The oldest Z-Track is the one I would like to.
Which one is that?
Is it the 60?
Z10.
They're zero turn, 60-inch, zero turn, and wide area.
There's one's a replacement. It's a 60-inch for $20,000. The other is $14,000.
Here.
I need my write-up. Actually,
is it the larger or the smaller of the 2?
Here.
54-inch deck mower, the first one on this write-up is the one I would like to keep.
The 60-inch.
It's $14,000.
Okay, okay.
That's the one I would like to retain. That's been the most maintenance-free.
Okay, so
I mean,
we'll defer.
If the thing breaks down during the year, we have to do something.
So we'll defer the $20,000 to
defer the 14.
You can always go by a little.
No, defer the 20. Oh yeah, defer the 14.
Defer the 14. That's what he wants.
Oh yes, right. Sorry. Okay, anything else in Public Works? Moving on, how about, again, on the CIP for police? Thank you for your patience. 30 years of this.
30 years. I learned patience at home. With children.
Yeah, not your wife.
No, my children, not my wife.
So questions concerning?
Which one was the one that was with RB? Was that the bi-directional amplifier?
Yes, and I would ask that remain in, but there is a possibility that money will not be spent. I have had direct talks with the superintendent. He did plan on bringing it to his board. I have to honestly say he wasn't too thrilled about the idea. It is absolutely a public safety issue for us, but they're the only ones that would be served by that. So it's the students, staff, and visitors to that facility
that would get the benefit, in addition to my officers that respond to be able to get out a clearer signal from inside the facility to the 911 center. He does plan on bringing that up to his board, but I told him, I believe Trustee Collins told me before, and I agreed with her, if his board says no, then I assumed that this board did not want to pay the full amount on our own unless we felt it was such a public safety issue for the officers in the school that we should revisit it to pick the cost up ourselves.
And is the $20,000 the full cost?
Yes, I've priced them out, and they're going anywhere between $17,000 and $20,000. So I originally asked the superintendent if we could just split it 50-50. So he is going to ask his board that, but they haven't got to that point with his board.
So should we just put 10 in here then? Pardon me?
I think we should wait for the school's reply if they're going to partner up with us.
I would agree with that.
So leave it, or?
I would, I'd say we defer it until we hear back from 208.
My preference, well, we don't have to vote on it tonight. My preference would be to leave it in.
Put a marker on it?
Yeah, because I think it's harder if we have to all of a sudden allocate $20,000 more dollars.
Or do you want to allocate 10, which is half the cost?
Well, you have, for budgeting purposes, you have to budget the full dollar amount of the equipment, then we get reimbursement.
Okay. All right. Other questions for Chief White?
Is there a floor, Tom? Something with a locker room floor, or are we?
Flooring?
The projects that the board approved for 2014 have been completed in the CIP, in the general budget for the police department proposal for 2015. There is a floor proposal in there for $20,000. It's not in the CIP budget.
Locker room floor?
The locker room the locker room floor has been completed. The lockers have been completed. Right. The IP cameras have been completed, and the squad car purchases have been completed. And the car that was damaged has arrived. The new car has arrived. It's been shipped off to our outfitter and should be due back probably in about 2 weeks. And we continue to submit bills through the finance department to IRMA, and we are continuing to get reimbursed through the other individuals' insurance.
Anything else?
Are we leaving the flooring in?
I have the floor in the general budget, not the CIP. Are we on that one? Yeah. Okay, yeah. There was discussion, as you recall, when we first, when I first presented it, or at least first brought the idea. But my idea was to get the entire department done with the flooring. It is for the common areas only. It's not for offices. And there is a possibility that it would come in under that budget of $20,000. And there is also the possibility, if it was the board's desire, that we could split it and do the basement 1 year if the board so desired to even approve that project, and then do the upstairs the subsequent year, or vice versa.
Tom, is that a terrazzo floor in the lobby of the building?
It is.
Yeah, very expensive floor.
Yes. I did not include the lobby because it's very expensive.
Right.
Actually, the lobby was included in the unfunded over the years. You recall the CIP had the facade in there for $250,000. That was part of the original artist conception we got on a new facade. So I've never included. This is just within the police department and our booking room and the floors in the cells. Because those would be two different materials that I would request, because our insurance company has asked us if we replace our booking room and we replace our cells, that we go with a non-slip floor, because our insurance carrier has paid significant amount of money in the past to prisoners that have fallen while in police custody, and because of slippery floors, or they have some type of incident where it wasn't cleaned up before, or they vomit, and they have sued the municipalities, and our insurance company has paid out, in some cases significantly, because the floors are slippery. So,
all right, Gene and I are getting a visual of that.
Yeah. So they make a rubber composite floor that we would look at for the booking room and the cells, so we could reduce our liability when we're housing prisoners.
Okay. Other questions for the chief? All right. we'll see if we'll get back to the general fund stuff in a minute.
I just have one last question. Chief, would that reduce our insurance payments to replace the floors?
No, I mean, it would reduce the money the village pays.
To Irma?
No, it just reduces our liability.
Our exposure, but it doesn't reduce our...
No.
You know, we were able to recently enter a contract to reduce our phone usage in the booking room. So the Illinois law just changed where we do not have to provide the defendants where we pay the phone bills. So the law changed that our people in our lockup have to have availability to call, but the law changed in Illinois. It can be collect now. So our phone system is being put in the lockup now. It's being put in free of charge, and the defendants have to use the toll to call, and the village will no longer be paying for our prisoners to make phone calls. So that's a good thing. And we're using the same company that North Riverside and Brookfield is doing, and they're charging the village nothing for that switchover as a result of the law just passed within the last 2 months.
While the chief is there, did you have questions about the vehicle? We're okay with the vehicle, the SUV? Yes? Okay. All right. Thanks, Chief. Parks and Recreation. Any questions for Mr. Malchiotti? No? Okay, under vehicle replacement, we've just approved the supervisor vehicle for police. The 2 vehicles for fire have been deferred, and I think, Mr. Foley, you had something you wanted to ask about the utility vehicle for public works.
Yeah, what are we going to buy? What are you looking at buying right now?
Yeah. It's the utility vehicle, the Gator.
Yeah, is it a Gator?
It's, I would say along the lines of a Bobcat Toolcat.
Oh, yeah.
Polaris makes a vehicle called Brutus.
Yep.
Brutus, I mean, and this Polaris company claims that they make the Toolcat.
Right.
The vehicle has, well, I guess I described it as load carrying capacity, towing capacity. Attachments can be acquired for it. So
you can put a broom on it?
Broom, mower, bucket, blade, plow blade. And maybe a few other things, but they come up with other things. Another thing that if this eventually is approved that we might think about doing is like put a salt spreader on it, that kind of stuff. So it's got a 24 horsepower diesel engine. It's a lot more substantial vehicle, obviously, than these golf carts. So.
It's street legal where the golf cart isn't.
Yeah, it's fairly impressive vehicle. We think quite well built. This Polaris that we've looked at, we have had a demo on that, and again, it's very competitive with the Bobcat, and then there's some other companies that do make similar vehicles.
And the prices here covers that?
We would expect the vehicle itself to be about $20,000, and an attachment or so might push it up to $25,000.
Okay, so this includes that.
I would like to at least get a plow blade for it.
For $11,000.
Okay, we okay with that?
I have one question for Chief, if you would. The 2 command vehicles?
Yes.
How many command vehicles do we have? We have 3, correct?
Correct.
And I know 2 of them were, I know they're deferred, but 2 of them were inspected. Has the 3rd one been gone over yet?
Not the 3rd one. The 2 have been inspected, and
how did they?
Results in your packet there from Riverside Garage. The 3rd one has not been inspected because of the mileage is in good shape yet. It's a 2007, has the least amount of mileage on it at 50,000.
Well, when I looked at these 2, that even the deferred, the one with 100 and some odd thousand miles looks like it has a lot of work on it, and it looks like it has considerable. I mean, it can go anytime.
That's correct.
So I don't know.
And we've had some significant repairs,
especially since
the
April.
fuel tank has fallen out of it. We've had transmission had work on it, so
I don't know if it's necessarily prudent to defer the oldest the one that has the most miles on it, of what I saw. And actually, after some discussion I had with the gentleman over at Riverside Garage, they said that car could be expensive fast. Is that
is correct.
That's the same thing. My second question is, do we need 3 command vehicles?
At present, yes. So the command vehicles that are assigned, 2 that are on the CIP, one's assigned to myself and functions as a command vehicle during the day when I respond from here or from home. The second one is assigned to the Deputy Chief Buckley of Operations. He lives in town, so he primarily responds in the evening or when he's off during the day. Third one is assigned to what I refer to as a duty officer position. So that's a position that is not paid currently, and it is. I have a policy so that that vehicle is taken home, remains within the village proper, and has an obligation to respond. And so that's why that has very low mileage, because it's technically only used or utilized when they have a duty to respond when there's either a fire call or a extensive EMS or an accident.
So, but that's the same as the reason that Deputy Chief Buckley has his car, right?
That's correct.
And both are, because we used to have 2, right?
And I remember years ago, or not even that long ago, for some reason I was at a board meeting and I wasn't a trustee.
Okay.
We had 2.
We had 2.
We didn't get rid of one, we bought another, and
right.
We have 3.
And I remember Jack, President Wyatt at the time, when the thing was getting, well, we might as well keep it because we can't get anything for it. So let's just keep it because it's not going to cost us anything. Well, today it costs us $35,000.
Okay.
So my question is are we better to have 2 command vehicles, decommission Buckley's car, and give Buckley the officer in charge car, because that's a non-paid position anyway, and just have your car and the other command vehicle, and then decommission the one with the oldest miles. It looks like it's the one that has, and go back to 2 cars like we did 10 years ago.
Well, so you're asking if we decommission the deputy chief's vehicle, is that?
And give him the car that is the command of whatever.
So
the
then,
chief in command. Duty officer.
So we would then have to make that duty officer position some type of compensation, if you will, position. Because right now, I have a policy, but it's not a paid position. It's a assignment, if you will, without any compensation assigned to that until a call comes in, until there's a need for them to respond. Will they actually get a compensation for that? The question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What year is our pickup truck?
The pickup truck is a 2000. Just a minute. Just want to make sure it's correct. Pickup truck is a 2005.
And it's.
An Excursion is 2001.
And the pickup truck has how many miles on it? Pickup
truck has roughly 14,687 miles.
It's a 2005.
And Excursion is 15,837.
So we
so
can't.
Those vehicles again, they aren't assigned to anybody.
So we can't have our duty officer drive one of those 2 vehicles. I mean, 2005 with 14,000 miles on it. It's
both those vehicles are utilized at the station, and those are the vehicles that personnel will come back to the station after hours and take to EMS calls. So if one of those vehicles aren't at the assigned station, then we would have to take an apparatus out for an EMS call. So,
but if it only has 14,000 miles on it and it's 9 years old, it hasn't been used very often.
Because it's not utilized for staff usage and it's kept in town.
Could the daytime manning officer use one of those vehicles?
Well, yeah, I mean, they could. It's just that operationally it will interfere with the ability of taking that vehicle now for staff, or actually firefighters and personnel to come and take a vehicle to respond to EMS after hours.
Yeah, but if they were to use the pickup truck, which really you can only put 2 people in the pickup truck, and you got the Excursion that has a back seat in it, you can carry.
Well, the pickup truck is an extended cab, so it has.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So both those vehicles.
I don't know. I think the cars are they're done, you know, but we have 2 vehicles sitting in the garage over there that have very low miles on them. And they're actually in very good condition.
Yeah, they're very good.
You know, and I realize that both of them are diesels. I realize that usually in a cold weather situation, if they were brought home in the evening, that they would have to run. You know, if the officer had or fireman had to run in and come out, you know, they run. They're loud. They're noisy. You know, but the amount of miles that are put on in 1 year, I mean, could we get another 3 or 4 years if we started implementing the pickup truck more and using that? And just like Joe said, go back to 2 cars.
So my recommendation would be to keep the oldest car until wheels fall off, which sounds like it's pretty soon. And then at that point in time, we do no more repairs on it. And then we go down to 2 command vehicles, and we utilize the other vehicles that are in the fleet for your daytime offices. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, your car gets more miles simply by virtue of you not living nearby.
That's correct.
And, yeah,
that's what I think.
You're ready to do that?
Okay. I'm confused though. So the new car then would go to.
Wouldn't be a new car.
Right now, there would not be a new car.
I'm just realizing. I'm just trying to realize the cars that we have. Right, but by deferring it means that we'll repair it. So what I'm saying is we won't repair the Buckley automobile because of the health of it that was given to it. It looks like it's, you know.
But the chief is requesting 2 cars.
That's next year. We requested 2 cars this year. And we asked to have them both looked at, and one of them came back looking fine, and one of them came back that looks like it needs to be done. It's done. It's had its useful life. It's got 100 and some odd thousand. My point in this discussion is do we need 3 command vehicles? Because there's a 3rd command vehicle. So the chief would maintain his car. The deputy chief would pick up the 2nd command vehicle that is now used by the officer in charge, and then the officer in charge would then utilize one of the other vehicles in the fleet, which would either be the pickup or the Tahoe, or the excursion that are basically underutilized.
So that would be a budget line completely eliminated from that.
Be a car completely eliminated.
Although the chief says that would affect emergency.
Nighttime.
It would,
nighttime.
Yes. It would.
But they're talking about only using it during the day.
Right, for the day.
Explain again how it would affect how would it affect nighttime manning and emergency
So the duty
situations?
officer would take the vehicle during the day. He responds during the day if he's in town or on assignment. In the evening, he take the vehicle home. The duty officer takes the vehicle home and responds from home in that vehicle. Advantages to that is that they keep the structural firefighting gear in the car, and oftentimes they are the first ones to arrive to the location, and that's critical to our operation because we need to get somebody to start the command process, size up, and establishing whether or not we need additional help. So for instance, Deputy Chief Buckley in his vehicle, because he lives in town, is usually the first person after hours on the scene and is able to take care of it, start to elevate and request for additional help or return companies. The duty officer, when Deputy Chief Buckley's not available, will support or be the first one on location. Obviously, Deputy Chief Buckley has other commitments, and so when he doesn't show up, expect the duty officer to be in that position. If they both show up, then that duty officer becomes operations, a person that takes a command position closer to the event. And so having 2 command officers obviously is ideal. Having 1 is essential. Having no is not a good situation for us.
And I know this is before your time, but apparently for most of the history, we've only had 2. So how did it work then?
Well, they used to rotate apparently because they had actually 2 deputies and a chief, so they used to.
They used
what I understand.
We used to refer to it as the clown car, the van that Ed wants to get rid of. The old...
Okay, so are we in agreement with what Mr. Ballerini is saying? Going back to when this one conks out? Okay. Any other questions for Chief Camira? Okay, anything else remaining on the CIP that you have questions about?
I just wanted to confirm that the $17,000 in the parking lot fund, we're doing permeable pavers, is that correct? Is that what, we've had a discussion on that one time.
I don't believe for that particular lot that that's the case. You're
It's
thinking
not.
of the commuter parking lot, which we were
okay.
discussing last year, which is a little bit more pricier as it relates to the resurfacing.
Which one is lot 5?
It's over there. It's on the other side of the building. Ed probably is better.
Immediately east of the police department and north of the youth center.
Okay.
And I don't think there would be justification for permeable pavers because of that, it's already draining to the end of the river.
Okay.
So I get a sense that we're fading. So I think
I did have one more question, hopefully it'll be quick. Where in this, how and where in this budget is enhanced downtown landscape maintenance covered? We talked about that briefly, I think, at one meeting, and we wanted to, see.
the RFP, you mean that we're working on for the downtown and the train center?
Yes.
I did advertise and receive bids for Central Business District planter bed maintenance, and the winning bidder, whatever, was $11,118 for annual planter bed maintenance.
How much was it?
$11,118
for the season. Yeah.
All of the Central Business District planting beds, and that's macadam. Landscape was a low in River Forest. Told them that there's a streetscape program project coming along, and there will be changes and so on and so forth. That includes a spring cleanup, I think 5 monthly weedings and a fall cleanup, and then a compost application once per year.
And then
basically what we're doing now.
And then the watering is still our responsibility?
Yeah.
Does it include mowing around the parking lot by the swim club and mowing in
No
behind
mowing. No mowing, just planter bed.
How are we covering that?
The mowing around the swim, we do that now.
Okay, but not very often, right?
You're referring to the railroad right-of-way?
The railroad right-of-way, the adjacent to the railroad right-of-way, around between the parking lot and the swim club. I mean, there's, last year I had called in and someone mowed it in response to the call, but I think that was the only time it got done last year. There's a strip behind the between Burlington buildings and the railroad tracks. There's a strip of land that's just covered with weeds that are 3, 4, 5 feet tall, and I think it's our property. So I was hoping to see a comprehensive landscape maintenance program, not just the planter beds, but
that's all I was really tasked with doing is the planter bed maintenance.
I think this will free up staff time too.
Well, I want to see that. I want to know
well,
that.
It certainly, I would welcome you to contact me and point things out to me, because either we're not, we're missing stuff and we don't want to miss stuff, and sometimes we have turnover, and the people, because a lot of times primarily the people doing the mowing are the seasonal, part-time seasonals, and there's turnover there. But we want to. Our expectation is we're going to maintain public property that belongs to the village. So if we're missing something, I'd like to know about it.
For example, one thing that comes to mind is where the commuter lot is, and then you walk up to the train station, there's that fence there.
Right.
That's badly overgrown. And so I guess my question would be similar to what Mr. Pollock's saying, is if we are able to have macadam handle the CBD, will your folks be able to do those other places, or should we let macadam to expand their scope and let them handle these places that are harder to get to.
That's part of the agreement that, that's commuter lot 1 there between, that serves the train depot. That's part of the
that's
project.
In this number.
Sure.
That's in this number. Oh, okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Really, everything within the central business district.
Gotcha. I thought you said it was only the planter beds.
Nope.
Oh.
No. It's quite a few, actually. And they inspected them before they bid, and they met with me and talked to me and so on and so forth, so they should have a good handle on it. Matter of fact, I've contacted them, I think it was today or yesterday, and said, oh, by the way, we'd like a September, monthly weeding this month, and then we expect the fall cleanup next month.
That's really good news. Great, thank you. So we will pick this up again at our next meeting. Thanks for sitting through all this. To the staff that's here, it took us longer than we thought just to get to this point, but this is how budgets work. So, okay, we have no new business. We do not have a need for executive session, so I'd ask for a motion and second to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pollack, second by Ms. Collins. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton. Aye. Trustee Pollack.
Aye.
Trustee Valerie.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Meeting is adjourned.